Hello, stroke warriors everywhere and their families. Welcome to Stroke Warrior Radio, the station built by survivors for survivors. I'm your host, Ralph Cortez, and I want to thank you for tuning in to another powerful episode where we share tools, truths, and real stories of recovery. Today, we're diving into what happens after the hospital discharge, which I got to tell you, it was frustrating for me. They didn't give me enough information. Oh, anyway, we'll get on that another part. Those quiet but critical moments when survivors go home and often feel lost. But here's the good news, you're not alone. Our guest today is someone who truly understands that journey. She's a returning guest, a friend of the show, and one of the strongest advocates out there for cognitive healing after brain injury. Please welcome back speech language pathologist and certified brain injury specialist, Carrie Potoff. Carrie, welcome to the Stroke Warrior Radio again.
Thanks for having me back, Ralph. I'm really excited to have today's discussion because I think it is so crucial and there is a lot of isolation at discharge. So just to know what's out there and kind of what to expect is really important for survivors and their families.
I agree. So that's why we've titled Hope Beyond the Hospital today.
Hmm.
So, um, let's talk about that drop off. I remember leaving the hospital thinking, now what? It was like the bottom fell out from me, career-wise, financial-wise, physically, mentally. What do you see happen for most of the survivors you work with?
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that because you have so much structure and support while you're in this very safe environment, meaning the hospital or a rehab facility. And as much preparation as the team can give you, suddenly you do go home and it's kind of a culture shock for everyone involved. So a lot of people leave the hospital knowing, yes, I'm medically safe, but the feeling at home, I think, can be really isolating. And that lack in structure and care and kind of fear of it, like what to expect, knowing what to expect with insurance and just having the education as far as what's next because the situation is new to everyone involved. So I think there is a lack of kind of education and support out there for this stage in the recovery. And that's a lot of what I'm doing. But there is stuff out there. So I want to make sure everyone has the resources and know their options as well.
You made an interesting statement that discharge doesn't mean done. It means stable, not recovered. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think a lot of times therapy just ends too after you are discharged from your rehab or from the medical setting. So I think this is one of the most meaningful parts of recovery is once you're home and seeing that progress, it does continue. Just because therapy ends does not mean that your progress is done. And I think there needs to be supports in place and therapies in place to continue to support that progress versus just doing it on your own.
Yeah. I need to jump in, and maybe this is a bad spot to put it, but insurance might cut therapy short. Appointments end, and the families are left guessing what's next. Emotionally, cognitively, it's just shock to the system. What do you recommend for that to a family and survivor?
Well, insurance is different for everyone. And unfortunately, we're all part of the game of insurance. So some folks might just have like 10 visits between PT, OT, and speech. And 10 visits across 3 disciplines is not going to cover all the progress that's left to be made. And honestly, a lot of times it's the cognitive game that's the long term. And so yes, insurance may expire, but there's also free supports out there like support groups and just kind of some online groups, but kind of looking out for more resources as far as cognitive therapy and what other sports you may need, getting a gym membership or a personal trainer. So kind of being creative because unfortunately insurance, they're not going to cover forever. And rehab isn't just within 3 months or 2 weeks, whatever you're granted.
Yeah, I'm very lucky with the coverage I've gotten over the years because
Mhm.
I still go to therapy. It's 9.5 years later, so
Yeah, that's
I was lucky. In the beginning, though, it wasn't. one of the things I found, and I'd like to share this occasionally, but was 211, calling 211. It's an information helpline across the
Mhm.
country, and it's localized by your area. I found therapists, I found help with Medicare and Medicaid because I was disabled, all those kind of things. A lot of people don't know where to find the information
Mhm.
because we're not warned this is what's going to happen to you. How do
Right.
you, how do you, on a first session, when you talk to a patient outside, just getting out of the hospital, what do you tell them to expect and what should they be hearing?
Yeah. Well, I think it's so personalized and individualized per patient or per client. There are like the Brain Injury Alliance that you can look into statewide or nationally. And then there's those support groups that you can get involved with. I think with my program, it's just kind of getting to know the client where they're at. And then we really work on goal setting. We also connect them with a group. And so there's a lot of supports in place that aren't just for the short term, they're going to continue. And a lot of what we do is habit creating and building that routine and structure that's so crucial, especially when you're kind of getting into your new normal, which is totally different to everybody. So, um,
Yeah,
yeah, what to expect. No one knows what to expect when they're thrown into this. And that's part of it. No one has this roadmap, and that can be really scary, isolating, and frustrating. And so the family's going through it, the client's going through it. A lot of what we do is try to support, not like give them the full roadmap, but as much support as we can as to what to expect. And here are our options.
yeah. And do you find, I think we talked about this before, do you find finding other survivors is a boost for recovery? I
Yeah.
mean, building that community with other survivors and therapists?
Absolutely. I think what's interesting is like a lot of people will be discharged, they go home, and they may not know one other person with a traumatic brain injury or a stroke. So finding these groups is crucial to know that you're not alone in these like really frustrating day to day experiences. There's someone out there who's going through something similarly. So I think trying to progress by yourself is going to be more challenging. But if you have a community to lift you up and kind of celebrate the little wins along the way, that's going to be helpful. And it's also helpful for the caregivers too to find that community as well. So you're just not feeling like you're alone in this process.
Excellent point about the caregivers. That's good idea. Good idea. One of the things that I didn't realize until few months later is the cognitive struggles that appeared. Um, that's kind of the invisible part. What there's physical. People expect the physical symptoms, but what really lingers are the brain fog. Is that other other things that may manifest themselves later on in
Yeah.
that cognitive area.
I think you make a really good point that people expect some of the physical symptoms because they're so tangible. Like, I think PT is amazing and you can kind of see the progress and it's visible and in your face, whereas cognitive symptoms are invisible. And I may be walking and talking and out in the streets, but I also may be really struggling inside as far as cognition. I think the fatigue, the cognitive fatigue, is one of the most in your face things once you're kind of back in the real world. And it's a lot of what I'm seeing and feeling that people are reporting. So, that overstimulation, managing your energy levels and your fatigue throughout the day is a really huge part of it because your reserve is so low after an injury. So, before maybe I could go to the grocery store, go to the mall, run a few errands all in one day. And so, really being mindful of how you're allocating your energy throughout the day is huge for survivors because their brain is working on overdrive. So, the fatigue is huge, your processing delays, the memory, all of that comes into play when you're in a more functional setting, which is real life and life after the hospital. So, I think again, you don't see it in the hospital, and then you're home and you're like, oh crap, this is a little bit more challenging than I expected.
Yeah. I didn't realize again, but I found out kind of the hard way how overstimulation in crowds started to affect me.
Mhm.
How lights started to affect me, how sounds. I was with a friend in a restaurant a couple of weeks back, and some guy in back of us yelled, and he looked at me and said, "You have issues with overstimulation with your stroke too?"
Yeah,
It was like, whoa, the sound just jumps at you.
definitely. Yeah. And your brain is trying to process the visual information, the auditory information, all the crowds. So it's a lot for your brain to take in.
I used to get totally drained at the grocery store, bright lights, making the decisions on what to buy, the noise. I felt like I ran a marathon.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Those outings you wouldn't think it pre-injury. And then now, like as of today, you're like, that's going to be my one big outing today. And then I'm going to do more chill things the rest of the day to make sure that I'm not completely overdoing it and that tomorrow is ruined because of how much I did today.
It does get better though. Don't you agree? I mean, if you're choosing to be a stroke warrior instead of a stroke survivor or a brain injury warrior instead of just a survivor, uh, they'll keep doing it because well, for me, I just kept doing those things.
Mm-hmm.
They were really uncomfortable or they may have looked terrible, but I
Mm-hmm.
kept doing them. And now it's like, okay, I can
Yeah,
go to the grocery store or whatever.
exactly. Yeah.
I I went through a lot of shame for struggling with tasks that once felt simple.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Tell me about that and your patients.
Yeah, I think that is common because pre-injury, you're high functioning, you have this job, and you're really doing high level tasks throughout your day without even appreciating it or thinking about it. And then post injury, the most simple task seems really challenging. So, again, I think the more you're exposed to it and the more you continue to practice that with it, whether it's therapy or on your own, that exposure, you're going to see progress and efficiency improve. I think the number one thing too is just to be aware of your compensatory strategies and how you can use your environment, use your strategies to support that, to make your day more successful and efficient, and eliminate or at least decrease some of that frustration that comes with the most simple tasks.
Well, I think one of the things I had to do was to accept that it was biology, not weakness.
Yes, exactly. It's your brain healing. It's not you.
Yes. A friend of mine, we were when what's his name? Fetterman got elected,
Mhm.
and they tore him apart in the press and all over because of his stroke. It's like we haven't lost our intelligence. It's
Mhm.
just a different way of expressing it. It's still in there, but it's just difficulty. That's hard to accept.
Yes, exactly. Thinking it's still in there, but how do I retrieve it? I oftentimes will use the analogy of like you have all these filing cabinets and just imagine that they all were tipped over, dumped all over the floor and mixed up. And that's kind of how your brain is at this point. They're filed somewhere, but we just need to figure out how to access it and reorganize it and kind of rebuild that system that was working before. So again, that processing time and that wait time, those are huge.
Well, and that leads us into a great area, practical tools.
Mhm.
Let's shift there. What are some of your go-to strategies for helping survivors manage this cognitive load?
Yeah, I think a few things. We talked already about the fatigue management, so kind of being mindful of how you're planning your week and your day. Another big thing is that structure and routine throughout your day is going to be huge for supporting memory and just your efficiency. So your brain kind of knows what to expect in each of those situations. We do a lot of work with like planning out our week. The big outings we talked about, maybe the grocery store is something you do, and that's your only outing of that day. So really finding times that in your day to block off for managing your fatigue, checking in with yourself. Those are huge. Another thing is just those visual reminders, using your external aids like your phone to kind of help remind you throughout the day of what to expect.
And yeah, I still have to use scheduling in order to, I even schedule naps. It's just part of the thing that keeps me going is resting in between.
Mhm.
Do you find that um, Routine is the friend of survivors, creating a simple structure, plan cognitive tasks at certain times of the day, rest breaks, whatever. Do you get your patients to kind of block them in like I'm doing?
Yes, exactly. I think in the hospital too, everything is so structured. You know what to expect there day in and day out. And then when you're sent home, that structure is lost. So being sure to kind of keep a routine at home, and again, it's going to take some time, but that way your brain knows what to expect each day. So scheduling maybe your home exercise PT at the same time every day. That structure, routine, and consistency is going to help with the fatigue management, but also your memory and your executive functioning. I think too, another tool that helps with that can be technology like Google Home or your Alexa or Siri. Some visual and maybe auditory reminders that go off throughout your day. So you're not relying solely on your brain, but also using some of those external aids to support.
Oh, I never thought of that. That reminder thing on Alexa. That's amazing.
Yes, yeah, it can be huge for sure. Several things. I mean, I use it for my grocery list, but reminders throughout your day of taking your medications on time or upcoming appointments or doctor's appointments, therapy, all of that can be super helpful.
We talked about it in our first show about sticky notes and timers or alarms. I mean, what are some of the other tools that you like?
All of the above, the sticky notes, the timers, the alarms. Something I often mention to patients and families is kind of having like a central station at home. So having a maybe a desk or part in the entryway where you put your calendar so your family, your caregivers, everyone's on the same page, as well as kind of like labeling where things go, like your keys, they have a home. Everything that you kind of need throughout your day to help support your memory is located in this specific area. So you know where to find it, caregivers know where to find it, but that consistency can also be a really helpful tools for people with executive dysfunction or memory loss.
Do you find that eventually those little locations become habit? And what is it, the 21 days you do something in a row and now it becomes a habit?
Exactly. Yes. That's kind of a lot of what I work on in the Brain Healing Collective is those habit building. So the more you do it, the more we can fade those cues. We can kind of fade some of those supports, and your brain will kind of develop a routine and know where to expect these things. So that habit building is huge, especially after an injury to the brain.
You, I don't know if we talked about this, but um, internal scripts.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I'm still healing. Can we slow down? I need, I want to do this. How am I going to do this? That self-talk. Do you get into that at all?
Absolutely. I think the confidence piece is a huge part because you knew yourself pre injury, your family knew yourself pre injury, and that is kind of shaken up after an injury. So the internal scripts are helpful, some mantras. I believe in all of that to kind of rebuild that confidence. Also, to kind of the external stuff we talked about last time of advocating for yourself, of, hey, I had a stroke, I need more time, or can you just give me a minute? I'm looking for a word. Just being able and kind of practicing those scripts to be more comfortable to use it in the community, especially when you're in a high stimulating environment like the grocery store or out in the community and speaking with unfamiliar listeners. Those scripts can come in handy to really practice some of them, those skills more functionally outside of therapy. So I believe all of that is super helpful for the confidence piece. And that's going to continue to come with exposure and just continuing to push yourself past those uncomfortable moments.
Do you, you mention in a couple of your things I've seen, power of movement, meditation, and breath work. Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of what we're working with in the Brain Healing Collective is the meditation piece or mindfulness piece. So just being a bit more aware of how your thinking skills are and how we can kind of work through that and compensate for a lot of it. We'll work on a lot of goal setting, which is huge at the beginning of our program. And then we still have trackers throughout the program that I kind of help for accountability, the accountability piece. But the mindfulness, as far as meditation, just being aware of slowing down and maybe starting that to build that into your new routine of meditation. It doesn't have to be that, it could be breath work. And that kind of leads me to my next movement is another huge part. So I'm yoga certified. So there's a piece on that. But if that isn't a good fit, we can also talk about other ways to move our body that feels safe and comfortable. Getting outside, all of those things, just kind of a healthier lifestyle to support that brain healing and recovery. And then the last pillar is the connection and community. So, like I said, we don't want to go through this journey alone and feeling isolated, and finding someone who has a similar experience is huge, to celebrate those little wins along the way. So, a lot of what I believe in is the community aspect and being able to connect survivors, warriors with each other, to support along the healing journey and celebrate together.
That's huge. I love what you said in our past session. Build a life you can sustain, not just survive. That really stuck with me.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's important, and I think that encouragement and knowing that that's possible is huge for people out there who maybe don't feel that at the time.
Um, the support system, when there's, it took me several years to find a support group,
Mhm.
or meet another survivor. How do you, um, what's available out there that you know of, such as support groups, peer mentors, coaching, whatever? Because, in the beginning, I was physical therapy and occupational therapy. Now, today, I believe there's 10 or 11 therapies, which include, um, coaching, acupuncture, chiropractor, masseuse, all those different things. What are some of the areas, uh, for both survivor and caregiver that you recommend?
Yeah, I think the community piece is huge. So support groups online or in person. A lot of times in person isn't available depending on where you're at. So kind of doing the research, looking at the Brain Injury Alliance. There's several online groups that you can look into. Just from the research I've done, though, it is lacking as far as finding more consistent groups that meet weekly. So I hope that's another gap where the Brain Healing Collective can continue to support, is finding, scheduled times where you know who's going to be there and what time and what to expect, just for more consistency. I think support groups for caregivers is another huge thing that we talked about last time, but they're going through this just as the survivor is, and it's all new to them. So finding someone out there that they can relate to and kind of have honest communication with is huge. The big thing is that recovery is so relational, and isolation is only doing more harm than good. So the support is huge when you're trying to heal and progress. And like I said earlier, the progress doesn't stop when you're discharged from therapy. So finding ways to continue to progress in your own way is huge.
Tell me a little bit more about the Brain Healing Collective support.
Yeah, so it's an 8-week program, kind of chunked up into 3 different pillars. So we've got the movement, mindfulness, and connection. I'm taking about 2 to 6 people per session, and each week is a different focus. So I'm there for one-on-one support, for goal setting, the cognitive support, and just kind of checking in for accountability. But there's also group sessions, and then we have a peer mentor who checks in weekly as well. We'll have different speakers coming in weekly as far as like movement or meditation or breath work. So each week we have kind of a different goal. But a lot of it too is going to be on the survivor to be the captain of their own team and really take the initiative of their healing and what they want to improve in. And then it doesn't stop after 8 weeks, right? So we'll have continued home exercise programs to support, and then they'll always have access to their community of who they did this group with, which will continue to grow with alumni. So there's support for the 8 weeks, but it doesn't stop there, and it'll continue, which is exciting. And then I'm hoping to do future sessions after just the Reconnect program.
And um, those are not only brain injury, but stroke survivors as well, or any kind of neurological
Yes, really
brain.
neurological, but a lot of who's been interested is stroke survivors and traumatic brain injury survivors. So that's kind of the bulk of it so far.
And do you provide the caregiver groups as well, or not yet?
Not yet. That's on the docket though. I'm excited to kind of explore that more, and I'd love to have someone to do that with as far as like a peer mentor in that regard. So, more to come as far as caregiver support.
Okay. If, and we might as well mention it here. How do people check out Brain Healing Collective?
Yeah, so right now you can follow along on Instagram. I'm at brain_healing_collective, or you can reach out to me at Carrie, Kerri Potoff, Potthoff, at brainhealingcollective.com.
Wonderful. Do you have a website as well, or?
No, just the email. Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So, Carrie, for someone listening today who's out of the hospital and feels alone or overwhelmed, what would you tell them? What's your first message?
I would tell them my message is that brain healing doesn't stop at discharge.
Never as good as it gets, correct?
Exactly.
I want to punch therapists and doctors that say that.
I
Because,
know. I talked about that last time. It's a super frustrating part of it.
yeah, I've heard it too many times. Um, Healing's nonlinear. Is if your insurance runs out, if um, should you continue some kind of therapy at home on as well?
Yeah. I think that's hard for a lot of people that insurance runs out, but there's still progress to be made. So again, doing your research, I also offer creating home exercise programs. So it doesn't have to be a weekly session, but I can generate those programs, send them out, and then check in next month and kind of reconvene, reconstruct the program to give them a little bit more autonomy over their program. But yes, being creative and trying to find other ways to continue to progress those goals, whether it's PT, OT, speech, or all three. So,
I'm really baffled because um, a lot we don't know the questions to ask. We didn't know what we didn't know. What should maybe I'm saying this all wrong, but what should people look for in therapists? I mean, you in particular, I love talking to you because it's so holistic. It's so whole big picture. You
mhm,
know, you're a speech language pathologist, but you're a big picture person.
mhm.
Is that you finding that more and more therapists are getting to that, or that it's becoming more and more prevalent?
I think what you should look for is having a neuro background, especially if you're a stroke warrior. So, neuro background would be my number one thing. And then kind of doing a vibe check. And we've talked about this going and exploring the facility and seeing if it's a good fit before really committing to a program. Yeah, those are probably my two requirements. The neuro background's huge because without that, what are we doing?
And I found, and maybe I'm offering this as advice, the only dumb question was the one I never asked.
Mhm.
So I started asking whatever came to my head, and I'd find out things like how to cook better. I mean, I said something to one of my therapists about, and I love cooking. writing an Italian cookbook. So, and I told him I'm having such a hard time, and that's how I relax.
Mhm.
And they offered me a stool. You know, if I didn't ask that silly question, I would have never gotten that stool. And I still use it to this day occasionally to help me while I'm cooking or working at the counter.
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
know, those
being resilient with those questions and asking several people. You can ask one provider and then go to the next and ask the same question. There's so many modifications out there that you can do or tools out there that you can use that you wouldn't know of, right? Because you've never been in this situation before. So continue to ask your experts, the people in your corner, your team, these questions, because there's so much out there to help getting back to those tasks that you really love to do.
wonderful, wonderful. Um, I'm again, I'm impressed with Brain Healing Collective because you help bridge the gap between discharge and thriving. And I really want to help promote Brain Healing Collective on Instagram, um, and also keep writing you. So please remind us again where they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so you can get a hold of me on my Instagram page is at brain_healing_collective, or via email is Carrie, Kerri .Potoff, Potthoff at brainhealingcollective.org.
Right? That's what being a stroke warrior is all about, finding the right people, I think. And
Yes.
I think you're one of them.
Well, thank you.
Do you do nationally or are you just local?
All nationally, because I am online and my platform's online, I can reach people nationally or even internationally. That would be cool. But yeah, that's kind of the point too, is I want to be able to reach folks that are remote and maybe don't have the resources that you would in a metro area. So that's the goal.
Love it. I love it. Anything you want to add for today's session?
I don't have anything to add. I'm excited for more conversations and see what we can cover next.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Thank you, Carrie, for being light in this space. And to our listeners, remember, you're not alone and your healing journey matters. Until next time, this is Ralph Cortez and Carrie Potoff. Keep fighting, keep healing, and keep turning into Stroke Warrior Radio and check out Brain Healing Collective. Thank you.